Future of the British Crown. What will happen when the Queen dies? Monarchy has reigned over England for over 1,000 years. The current sovereign, Queen Elizabeth II, has been on the throne since 1952, longer than 4 out of 5 Britons have been alive. She is seen as a constant presence through ever-changing politics and an ever-changing world. But despite the best medical care money can buy, the nonagenarian monarch probably can't live forever. So what will happen in the hours, days, months, and years following the Queen's death? Can the monarchy survive the reign of her unpopular son, Prince Charles? What will Charles and his wife Camilla be called? And why can't someone else, like Prince William, take the throne instead? Let's attempt to answer these questions about the monarchy's future by looking at how similar events played out in the past. What will happen when the Queen dies? In 2017, The Guardian published the detailed plans for when the Queen dies. Upon the moment of her passing, her heir apparent, her eldest son, Charles, Prince of Wales, will become king. The Queen's private secretary will inform the Prime Minister. Then the Foreign Office will inform the 14 governments where the Queen is head of state and the 35 other nations of the Commonwealth. When Elizabeth's father, George VI, died in 1952, the code phrase Hyde Park Corner was used to prevent switchboard operators from finding out. The news was kept under wraps for 4 hours to allow the government to prepare. For Elizabeth, the code phrase is reported to be London Bridge is down, but as this has now been highly publicized, it may have been secretly changed. It won't matter much, as the increased speed of communication means the Queen's death won't remain secret for long. A newsflash will be sent to the Press Association and will spread like wildfire across the world. Media outlets are all prepared with somber statements, black clothing, and biographies at the ready. BBC Radio and TV will play only somber music and no comedies until after the funeral. A black-edged notice will be pinned to the gates of Buckingham Palace, and the palace website will show the same text on a dark background. Across the country, flags will come down and bells will toll. Sporting matches will be cancelled. The London Stock Exchange will close, as will many businesses. Contingencies are in place for the Queen's death at any number of locations, including overseas, though that is unlikely as the elderly Queen has not left the UK since 2015. She will probably go at one of the homes she still frequents: Windsor, Sandringham, or Balmoral Castle. The royal undertakers, Levertson and Sons, will transport her coffin, made from oak grown on the Sandringham estate, to the location of her body. If the Queen dies at Balmoral in Scotland, then a wave of Scottish funeral rituals will be triggered. In every scenario, the Queen's body will be returned to the throne room of Buckingham Palace. Charles is scheduled to make the first address as head of state on the evening of or day after his mother's death. The following day, the Ascension Council, which has its roots in Anglo-Saxon times, will meet in St. James Palace. Charles will swear a solemn oath to the council. Trumpeters decked out in livery will blast, and the Garter King of Arms will announce the new monarch by the regnal name he has chosen. We'll get to that in a bit. A 41-gun salute will be fired from Hyde Park. The new king will leave St. James Palace and go on a tour of the UK, visiting Edinburgh, Belfast, and Cardiff to meet political leaders. Westminster Hall will be locked, cleaned, carpeted, and filled with thousands of candles. 4 days after her death, the Queen's coffin will be moved there in a military procession. The Queen will lie in state for 4 days, with the orb, scepter, and imperial crown upon her coffin. The public will be allowed entry 23 hours a day to pay their respects. 300,000 people came to see her father, and the line was 4 miles long. For Elizabeth, 500,000 are expected. In 1936, George V's 4 sons revived the ancient tradition of the Vigil of the Princes, in which members of the royal family stand watch over the coffin. This ritual was repeated for the Queen Mother in 2002. The Queen's children and grandchildren, including women for the first time, are expected to do the same. Before dawn on the 9th day, the doors will be locked and the crown jewels cleaned. At 9 a.m. on the 12th day, Big Ben will strike, its hammer covered in leather so that the ring will be muffled. Banks and businesses will again close for the day. The Queen's coffin will travel the short distance from Westminster Hall to the Abbey, arriving at 11 a.m. 2,000 guests, including heads of state and foreign royals, will sit inside while the funeral is broadcast worldwide. Next, the coffin will be placed on the same green gun carriage used for her father's coffin. It will be pulled by 138 junior sailors to Hyde Park Corner. From there, a hearse will take the Queen to Windsor Castle. News cameras will not be permitted to film her being laid to rest inside St. George's Chapel, next to her husband, Prince Philip, and near her father and mother. Her son, the new king, will drop a handful of earth from a silver bowl onto his mother's coffin. About a year after the Queen dies, the new king will have a coronation. The waiting period is a sign of respect for Queen Elizabeth and allows time for elaborate preparations. The date of a coronation does not affect the beginning of a monarch's reign, but is a chance for the nation to celebrate. Elizabeth was crowned 16 months after her father's death, in June, to allow for better weather. The coronation ceremony has remained largely unchanged for the past 1,000 years. It will take place at Westminster Abbey and be conducted by the Archbishop of Canterbury. The sovereign is first presented to, then acclaimed by his people. He swears an oath to uphold the law and the church. The monarch is anointed with holy oil, crowned and invested with the regalia, being the scepter, the orb, the ring, and other symbols of the reign. Finally, he receives homage from his subjects. Queen Elizabeth's 1953 coronation sparked many Britons to buy their first TV. Elizabeth was 27, and she inspired great feelings of optimism for the future. In contrast, Charles is now in his 70s and is seen as out of touch. When the monarch is a king, his wife, the queen consort, is traditionally crowned by his side. But as Camilla is even less popular than her husband, it remains to be seen if she will be crowned at the coronation. New coins and banknotes will show Charles's face rather than Elizabeth's, though the old ones will remain in circulation. Everything from post boxes to police badges that currently display the cipher E2R, meaning Elizabeth II Regina, will slowly be changed out for new ones. And the British national anthem will no longer be God Save the Queen, but God Save the King. Following Charles's ascension, his eldest son, Prince William, will be created Prince of Wales. This has been the traditional title of the heir apparent since Edward I conquered Wales and granted the title to his own son in 1301. William's wife, Catherine, will likely use the title Princess of Wales, last used by Princess Diana. There will probably be an investiture ceremony for the new Prince of Wales, like a coronation but on a smaller scale, at Carnarvon Castle. Why does Charles have to be the next king? In 1995, in the midst of their separation, Princess Diana gave an explosive TV interview, saying in so many words that her husband would make a poor king, and that the crown would be better off on the head of their son, Prince William. Since then, there have been countless calls for the throne to skip over Charles and be granted directly to William. Charles's infidelity with Camilla and poor treatment of Diana have left his character irreparably damaged, and he is seen as an out-of-touch bore who can't help but meddle in politics, something the monarch is constitutionally barred from doing. While Elizabeth is widely popular and seen as keeping the monarchy and the Commonwealth together, many are dreading seeing Charles on the throne. There's no denying that William would be a more popular king. He inherited a great deal of the compassion and charm which so endeared his mother to the public, not to mention the better looks. He and his wife Catherine are seen as far more in touch, and their glamour and charm gain them a lot of admiration. But the monarchy is not a popularity contest, and both tradition and law would never allow Charles to be denied the throne. Kings used to insist that they ruled by divine right, but today they base their reigns on the strength of tradition. Undermining that tradition by throwing out the succession rules in favor of a more popular royal would undermine the very monarchy itself. So when the Ascension Council steps out onto the balcony of St. James's Palace, it is almost unthinkable that they would declare anyone but Charles the new king. How is the next monarch decided? The 1707 Succession to the Crown Act cemented into law the long tradition of using primogeniture to determine who the next monarch is. This means the monarch's eldest child is first in line. Prior to 2013, sons were given preference over daughters. But now the succession is determined by absolute primogeniture, which gives women born after 2011 equal standing to their brothers. Next, the succession goes to the eldest child's eldest child. If the descendant has no children, it will go next to their siblings in birth order. If Charles dies before the Queen, the crown will go directly to Prince William. Whenever someone in the line of succession dies, everyone behind them simply moves up one place. When a royal baby is born, everyone behind them moves back one place. The people in front of that person are never affected. Here's how the rules of primogeniture play out to create the current order of succession. After Queen Elizabeth, the first in line to the throne is her eldest son, Charles, then his eldest son, William. Next is his son, George. If all goes as planned, George's eldest child will someday be monarch. As George is still a child himself, the next in line after him is his sister Charlotte, then his brother Louis. If William has any future legitimate children, they will follow Louis. But for now, the succession next moves up one generation to William's younger brother, Harry, and his children, Archie and Lilibet. After them, we move back up another generation to Charles's siblings. The next eldest is Princess Anne, but as the Succession to the Crown Act is not retroactive, she and her descendants remain at the back of the line behind her younger brothers and their descendants. Ninth is Prince Andrew, followed by his daughter Princess Beatrice and her daughter Sienna, then Princess Eugenie and her son August. 14th is Prince Edward, followed by his children James and Louise. Louise is older, but as both were born before 2011, their order remains subject to male preference primogeniture. 17th in the succession is Princess Anne, followed by her son Peter Phillips and his two daughters Savannah and Isla. Then Anne's daughter, Zara Tyndall, and her children, Mia, Lena, and baby Lucas, is 24th. This rounds out the Queen's descendants. After them, the succession goes up yet another generation to the descendants of her sister, Margaret, and so on. So now that we know we're stuck with Charles, what will we be calling him? Monarchs have the right to choose their own regnal name. Queen Elizabeth's father's first name was Albert, but he chose to be styled George VI to emphasize continuity with his father. The name Charles comes with some unfortunate historic connotations. Charles I, king from 1625, ran afoul of the people by raising illegal taxes. Parliament rose up against him in the English Civil War. The king was captured, put on trial, and beheaded in 1649. The English decided that they didn't care for being a republic, so they invited the dead king's son, Charles II, to restore the monarchy. He was known as the Merry Monarch and had dozens of mistresses. If Prince Charles decides to rule with his given name, he would be King Charles III. But there was another man who claimed the same name. In 1688, King James II was kicked off the throne for his Catholic faith. His grandson, Bonnie Prince Charlie, raised troops in Scotland in an attempt to regain the throne. His Jacobite supporters called him King Charles III. But his army was wiped out at the Battle of Culloden, and he spent the rest of his life grieving his lost throne. With so many negative associations with the name King Charles, you have to wonder why Elizabeth gave that moniker to her eldest son in the first place. Sources close to Prince Charles Philip Arthur George say he is considering reigning as King George VII. When Queen Anne died without an heir in 1707, the throne went to her next living Protestant relative, George I, the Prince Elector of Hanover in modern-day Germany. His son, George II, was the last British monarch born on foreign soil. His grandson, George III, was king for 60 years during the American and French Revolutions and the Napoleonic Wars. He suffered from mental illness, and his son, the future George IV, ruled as Prince Regent before officially sitting the throne from 1820 to 1830. His great-grandnephew, George V, was king during World War I and changed the name of the royal dynasty from the German Saxe-Coburg and Gotha to the English Windsor. His son, King George VI, was an incredibly popular monarch during World War II. He died in 1952, passing the throne to his daughter, the current Queen Elizabeth II. It seems likely that Charles would take the opportunity to rebrand himself and be associated with his popular war hero grandfather, George VI, rather than the infamous, headless, philandering, or pretending Charleses. As Prince William is already very popular, and as his given name is not associated with anyone too terrible, he will likely reign as King William V, the previous being the illustrious William I, aka William the Conqueror, the Norman Duke who took over England in 1066. Next was his son, William II, whose younger brother, Henry, invited him for a hunting trip, shot him full of arrows, and stole his throne. William III was also the Prince of Orange and ruler of the modern-day Netherlands. He became King of England in 1689 alongside his wife, Mary II, when they kicked unpopular Catholic King James II off the throne. William IV ruled from 1830 to 1837. As he had no legitimate children, his niece, Queen Victoria, followed him. After William, the next monarch will most likely be his eldest child, Prince George, who will either rule as George VII or, if his grandfather uses that name, as George VIII. Will Camilla and Catherine be queens? When Charles becomes king, his wife Camilla will legally be the queen consort. Whether or not she will use that name depends on public support. Camilla first came into the public eye as the prince's mistress, the other woman to his incredibly popular wife, Princess Diana. When Charles and Camilla were married in 2005, it was announced that she would one day be styled Princess Consort. This was mostly to mollify outrage against the marriage. Queen Elizabeth's late husband was Prince Philip, not King Philip, and Queen Victoria's husband was Prince Albert, not King Albert. But there is a double standard when it comes to the spouses of kings and of queens regnant, or queens in their own right. Because of the perception that a man is above a woman and a king is above a queen, the husbands of queens regnant have usually been styled prince rather than king, to prevent confusion about who was sovereign. But when the monarch is a king, his wife has always been a queen consort. There has never been a princess consort in British history. In February 2022, Queen Elizabeth said, "When my son Charles becomes king, it is my sincere wish that Camilla will be known as Queen Consort." So it seems the official word from the palace is that there will be a Queen Camilla. Ultimately, the monarch is the fount of all titles, and Charles will most likely make his wife a queen. Prince William's wife, Catherine, is far more popular, so there is no debate about her being called Queen Catherine. And it is a very royal name indeed. There have been 5 previous English queens named Catherine, but don't make the mistake of calling her Catherine VI. Enumeration only applies to the monarch, not their spouse. Will King Charles III, or George VII, mean the end of the monarchy? There is no denying that Charles is not popular, but is he loathed enough to bring the end to a 1,000-year-old institution? Here are a few possible scenarios. 1. Charles could abdicate in favor of William. In 2013 and 14, 3 European monarchs, King Albert II of Belgium, Queen Beatrix of the Netherlands, and King Juan Carlos I of Spain, all abdicated in favor of their eldest children. All were in their 70s. There is no shame in choosing to retire and enjoy one's golden years. But in the UK, abdication is seen as a disgrace. Queen Elizabeth's uncle, Edward VIII, abdicated in 1936 to marry American divorcee and Nazi sympathizer Wallis Simpson. The royal family never forgave Edward for abandoning his duty, and this is why Elizabeth never chose to abdicate in favor of Charles. After being made to wait so long to get his bottom on the throne, it seems unlikely that Charles will be willing to hand it over to William. 2. Charles could do something so egregious that he is forced off the throne. This exact scenario was the plot of the 2017 drama King Charles III. Charles is extremely politically outspoken. He has made statements and written letters to government officials about everything from climate change to his desire to have gray squirrels slaughtered. Charles sees it as his duty to leverage his position for good, but some wonder why genetic luck allows him this special platform in the first place. In 2021, The Guardian broke the news that the Queen and Prince Charles had been using a legal loophole to prevent more than 1,000 bills, especially ones which affected the monarchy, from being voted on in Parliament. If Charles continues to meddle in politics and outrage the people, this could be used as grounds to force him off the throne. This has been done before. In 1649, Charles I lost his crown and his head over illegal taxation. After that, Parliament passed laws barring the monarch from political involvement. But subsequent sovereigns have found plenty of backdoor ways to influence the issues of the day. And so far, no other monarchs have lost their thrones or heads because of political overreach. 3. The Commonwealth could crumble. This seems to already be in motion. Queen Elizabeth is head of the Commonwealth, a federation of 54 former British colonies, and she is the head of state of 14 of those nations. In 2018, Charles was named as her successor as head of the Commonwealth, but the position is not hereditary and relies on the support of the member nations. Many Commonwealth nations are ready to shed their colonial pasts, blotted by slavery, and set a course for an independent future. Meghan Markle's accusations of racism within the royal family have added gasoline to the fire. In 2021, Barbados left to become a republic. In 2022, Jamaica announced that they will do the same. There are strong Republican movements in Australia, Canada, and Scotland. A change from Elizabeth to Charles could push even more nations to abandon ship. 4. The whole monarchy could be abolished. It's not just Charles who is unpopular. The British royal family costs taxpayers $107 million a year, far more than any other monarchy in Europe. Extended royal family are seen as hangers-on who don't contribute much in exchange for their massive pensions. Support for the abolition of the monarchy is growing in the UK. A 2021 survey found 81% of people over 60 support the monarchy, while only 53% of those aged 25 to 49 and 31% of those 18 to 24 feel the same. While those numbers don't look great, the Republican groundswell is not strong enough to push the government to bring up a referendum vote to abolish the monarchy. Yet, it is possible that Charles's ascension will change that. But the legal and cultural detangling that would be required to sever the UK's ties with the monarchy would make Brexit look like a bow tie. The UK was in the EU for just 47 years, but it has had a monarchy for 1,100 years. The very name, the United Kingdom, would have to be changed, and the monarchy has seen far worse kings than Charles and survived. 5. Nothing could happen. In 1901, Queen Victoria died after 63 years on the throne. At the time, she was the longest reigning monarch in British history and had ruled over an era of unprecedented growth in the British Empire and economy. Her son, the new king, Edward VII, was 60. He was politically outspoken, notorious for his 50-plus mistresses, and the public loathed the idea of him sitting on his revered mother's throne. But during Edward's 9-year reign, things turned out just fine for the nation and the monarchy. Edward was seen as a modernizer and fostered good relations with other nations. Charles's ascension may echo that of his great-grandfather's, but times have changed. Elizabeth's reign has seen the dismantling of the empire and a gradual decline in British economic dominance. Many are tired of the old status quo and of the monarchy. As the days tick ever closer to the inevitable end of Queen Elizabeth's reign and Charles's ascension, the world watches and waits to see what the future of the British crown will be. Do you enjoy my videos but hate all the looking and blinking? Then check out my new podcast, History Tea Time. The first episode, A History of Royal Incest and Inbreeding, will be launching June 2nd, 2022. Every Thursday, I'll be spilling the tea on history by revisiting and revamping my most popular YouTube videos and adding in even more fascinating information for your listening pleasure. So, next time you want to enjoy a steaming hot cup of history, but need to keep your eyes on work, chores, or the road, check out History Tea Time on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, and wherever fine podcasts are enjoyed. If you enjoyed this video, please like, subscribe, comment your thoughts, and check out my other royal history videos. If you really want to help, please consider supporting me on Patreon. A link is in the description. Thank you for watching.